Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the East Lindsey series. This is the biggest district in Lincolnshire, containing 188 civil parishes. Without further ado, here's today's offering. Welcome back to East Lindsey once again, folks, and this time we're in a village that has no more than about 50 or 60 houses and a church and not really much else. It's a nice little circle, this one as well, so it's going to be a good little walk. It's got an interesting name. Welcome to the parish of Wood Enderby. The East Lindsey series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Wood Enderby, Eindrithi's farm by the wood. This one could get a bit confusing. Welcome to Wood Enderby, a tiny village located approximately 4 miles south of Horncastle. The parish includes the hamlet of Wilksby, which isn't actually a hamlet, it's Wood Enderby that is, but technically it's also a village. Oh, flipping heck, let me just explain. Basically, both Wood Enderby and Wilksby have churches, it's just that St Benedict's at Wood Enderby is no longer in use, but All Saints at Wilksby is. The confusing part is that Wilksby is far too small to be called a village. Isn't Lincolnshire just a minefield of madness? Whatever the case, let's first deal with that name. Wood Enderby originated just as Endrebi, but wood was added to distinguish it from Mavis Enderby and Bag Enderby elsewhere in Lincolnshire. It was listed as Endrebi in the Domesday Book, but records in 1198 and 1328 referred to it as Wood Enderby, which was all one word. At some point later, it split into its current two. This one doesn't have a lot barring the two churches, a former Methodist chapel and a small village green. There are just 63 houses here otherwise, and it's all served by one solitary bus. It won't be a long episode, but I did find something which might possibly be of interest. Thor's copse. That's interesting, let's go exploring. Wood Enderby is a village, or some might say a hamlet, which has just 63 houses to its name, laid out along 5 roads: Wood Enderby Lane, Main Road, Back Lane, Highgate Lane and Church Lane. They form a neat little circle, which we're going to walk all the way around. Landmarks are few, but here's one. This substantial Wesleyan Methodist chapel stands on the main road through the village at the end of Church Lane. It's now been converted into a house. The first Wesleyan chapel in Wood Enderby was built on this site in 1838. It was rebuilt on the same site in 1876 and eventually closed in 1973. It overlooks a small village green, a triangle of land which marks the middle of civilization. A lot of the houses here are very modern, very few can be considered ancient. One that does fit that bill, however, would be Rose Cottage on Back Lane. This is a Grade 2 listed 17th century whitewashed mud and stud cottage, although it has had a few 19th and 20th century alterations. Wood Enderby has no amenities such as a local shop or any retail outlet. Nearly every single building in the village is registered as a private dwelling. The village still thrives though, partly because it's on a bus route. Farming has always been the main occupation out here. In 1902 there were no fewer than 9 farmers in the village, but now there are just 2. There was also a wheelwright and a carpenter named Cheeseman. There's a number of Cheesemans buried in the churchyard at nearby Morby, a village that's been linked to Wood Enderby for many years. There was also a blacksmith at one time, as well as a general shop, but these have all disappeared. In times past, villages on higher ground such as Wood Enderby and Morby were given pockets of land by way of compensation for the loss of grazing pasture. That's why, even though it's a long way from the village, Wood Enderby owns part of Wildmore Fen, an area of fenland totalling some 10,500 acres that stretches between Coningsby and Langrig. Rent from the Wood Enderby owned land on the fen still to this day provides a small income for the village. In the centre of the loop that Back Lane, Highgate Lane and Main Road all form is this open green space. Nearby is a pretty little shelter which has the parish notice board. Mark off Wood Enderby everybody, big or small, I'll cover them all. Wood Enderby used to have a school, and as we reach the green again we can see it, tucked away next to the old chapel. Now for Church Lane, where the spire of St Benedict's can be seen clearly. As well as the church, there's a joinery business up here that operates from the buildings of Manor Farm. These here are they. Otherwise, villagers have to go further afield for their local services. St Benedict's Church is a Grade 2 listed building despite the fact it's redundant. Now closed and used as a store, it was built in 1860 using limestone and greenstone on the site of an earlier church. The building was later restored in 1892. The original Church of St Benedict was constructed in 1791. It contained a late 18th century pulpit and a 14th century octagonal font. This church still retains an early English arcade of 3 bays between the nave and the north aisle, and it has a Norman piscina in the south wall of its chancel. St Benedict's was declared unsafe and redundant in 1977. Okay, so on reaching the church, that's pretty much the end of the route, because all I've got left to do is walk back down the shallow hill that leads up to it and then head back past the green, past the old schoolhouse and back to the car. So that's Wood Enderby village, but we're not done with Wood Enderby parish. You see, Wood Enderby also includes another settlement called Wilksby. That's got its own church and something called Thor's Copse. That sounds interesting, doesn't it? Let's see if we can hammer out what that is. Wood Enderby's villagers can no longer attend St Benedict's for services, of course, but they can come here to Wilksby. This is All Saints Church, Grade 2 listed and built of greenstone and red brick. This is the only building of note in the village. The first known record of a church on this site was in 1231. It was staffed by monks from the nearby monastery at Revesby and may have been used by them as a chapel of retreat. The church you see here now was built in 1787, and it used to have a thatched roof, which has now been replaced with tiles. In 1895, the church was renovated. A service is held here once a month, and on average the attendance is between 15 and 20. In the churchyard there are 2 landmarks of note. Here we have the Diamond Jubilee wood planted in 2012. This plaque was unveiled by Francis Dymoke, a descendant of John, who was a former rector here. The second thing is this little information board, which goes into far more detail about the history of the building. In World War I, Wilksby lost 3 people, and they're commemorated by way of a plaque inside the church. Just down the road from the church is an area known as Thor's Copse, and in this is Thor's Oak. Now this one has totally baffled me. I can confirm the tree in question within this clump is not the famous one that was sacred to the Germanic pagans. That one was located in the town of Geismar in central Germany that was cut down by St Boniface. He was an Anglo-Saxon churchman who spread the new totalitarian doctrine of Christianity throughout the nation. I can only assume this one is named after it, but it certainly has nothing to do with the pagans or with Thor himself. Finally, a few words about Wilksby village. It was mentioned in the Domesday Book as Wildmore, with the lord of the manor being William I. Wilksby is a former civil parish which was abolished in 1936 and amalgamated with Wood Enderby. Most of the land in the village is owned by the Revesby estate and is farmed by the Rowe family of Shirewood House and the Wingates of Manor Farm. Both families have farmed the land for several generations. Parochial church council meetings took place for many years at Manor Farm, then moved to Grange Farm and more recently to Shirewood House. And that's it for Wood Enderby. More tiny East Lindsey locations next week? You bet. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.